Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, having a look at a play that we don't really know what it's called, by Lady Rachel Fane. It's a fragment of the play of with the Duchess in it, Ortigimus. It's from about 1627-ish. That's the date I've got in front of me. I'm sure there's a date range on that. I'm sure there's an awful lot of material, short material on Lady Rachel Fane, and there are other little fragmentary texts, or complete texts, that exist that we will be looking at. But this is the first introduction to Lady Rachel. And we're going to find out what is going on with her tragi-comedy fragment here that we have. I don't know whether it is a tragi-comedy, whether we know that for certain. We shall see. Anyway, reading today to find out more about this little fragment. Reading Lusidimus is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm trying to be lucid, but I don't know. This might all be a fever dream.
It might all be a fever dream. Reading The Duchess and One Lord is...
Liza Graham. I think Eric might actually be my fever dream. Sorry about that.
Reading a host of parts, reading Forewarner, Regera, Empress, and Pantifelus is...
And I'm going to do this. Hi, I'm Gregory. Doomed!
We are indeed. And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. And Lord. There's a one Lord, there's a Lord. They are different lords. I will read one Lord. I will also read stage directions and generally keep us moving forward. So without further ado, let's dive into what we get here. It seems to be the opening of a text, because we get enter a forewarner. You are forewarned. Enter a forewarner in a grey coat, a white cap, a couple of things that we can't quite read, who then speaks without he appears.
This is so weird because if he's meant to speak without, does he appear without, as in outside of something? Or does he speak without appearing, in which case, why did you just describe his appearance? Why? Anyway, sorry.
Yes, these are questions we will attempt to answer. It could just be the way that it's written out here. Speaks with... I don't know. He's got a white cap and some... So we shall see. Anyway, Forewarner. Forewarners, please.
To you, the patterns of this sacred seat, I come of message. Post haste to entreat your room and patience, both propitious, first to our revels, secondly to us.
Suitably forewarned, enter a duchess named Ortigimus, with rich attire, being attended by two gentlewomen, their names Regera the one and Pantifelus the other, both played by Greg. She walked about and at last spake thus.
Regera, how forward is my petticoat and waistcoat? You neither work yourself nor set my maids to it.
And please your grace, your waistcoat is almost done, but there wanteth more than one whole breadth of your petticoat to do, and that is not yet come from the dress.
Send for it home. You may go in hand with it presently. When do you mean to preserve some apples? Oranges and lemons are coming in now, and I would have the apples dispatched out of the way first.
What quantity would it please your grace to have reserved, that I may know what sugar to call for?
I would have 20 or 30 pound of apples. You were best call for half a dozen sugar loaves, and be sure to write upon the pots how much of everything you put up.
One knocketh at the door.
Regera, look who's at the door there. But as for your part, minion, I see nothing come out of your hands but playbooks and toys, but I trow I'll have a better order which you show.
I shall see that all shall be amended.
Do not give me fair words only, but let me see good deeds withal. Regera, who's at the door?
May it please your grace, 'tis the letter of one of your servants from my lord's camp.
Give it me quickly. With the greatest joy that ever I received anything in my life, do I receive it.
She, going to her seat, sits her down and reads it softly, and after a while, perusing it, throwing it to the ground, cries,
"Ah! Oh, my lord, I wish my life had saved him.
Is my lord the Duke not well?
He's dead, Regera. He's dead. And I, unhappy creature, left to end my days in misery.
Comfort yourself, madam. If he be dead, your overmuch grief can do him no good. But in my opinion, I think you should have heard of sickness before his death. Therefore, I beseech your grace, have patience.
Ay, but that they kept from me for fear I should have come unto him. But there they have done me most horrible wrong. For had I been there, my lord had been alive. But now too late they write their letters. Here, Regera, take away my jewels, pull down these things, and let my chamber and bed be hung with lac, and let all things be prepared fit for so desolate a creature as myself.
Please, your grace, to go in and take some rest.
I can take no rest, but I will go in and make my moan to the gods that they may send me some relief or end my endless grief.
and they lead her in. End of scene ish. We'll discuss that in a moment. So this is it's got all the plot beats, doesn't it? There's not there's day-to-day business, clothing and preserving stuff, and then death. News of death arrives. It's nicely domestic. I really like this. It feels like a Jane Austen. It's quite lovely. Greg.
I love the line about, oh, you should have had news of sickness before you had news of death. I thought that was a wonderfully matey kind of comment.
It's nicely
It's
practical.
blindingly bloody obvious, but very, very well put. And you're right, I love the domesticity. I mean, I always love scenes with servants. I'm now trying to think I mean, we've had a great ones like the one in Darius, but I always love the scenes where you might get something of a hint of cookery. And that's essentially what you got there, the preserving. I just find it fascinating when food comes up in plates. And I thought that was a lovely scene because I could almost envision this maid going off, getting a jar or whatever, and putting the apples in and writing on it in her best, almost probably school-like handwriting of what she put in it. It was just, it's lovely. And I did sense we probably might have come in the middle of something, but it was still that wonderful sort of sense of impetus. And the Forewarner was just a lovely little sort of like, not entirely certain why he needs to be there, but hey, still fun.
Yeah, and it one almost feels with the Duchess, like Regera is just going, okay, I need you to give me proper instructions as to precisely what bulk of quantity of preservatives we're going for this year, because I need to get the sugar organised. That's quite, that's a social status thing, being derived there. But also, I just love the way the Duchess says, could you write labels on it this year? Because we spent ages trying to figure out what one was, and it was like, it was very unclear. I kind of feel like Regera is just rolling her eyes at that point, going, "Thank you, I know how to label jam. I do not need you to tell me how to do this."
Well, it's a bit like that unknown bit of meat that turns up in the freezer that you can't quite remember what it is, and so you defrost it. You can't remember what it is. I also love the other maid, Pantifelus. But the other interesting thing, I think, and I can't remember if it was Eric or somebody else said in the chat, it seems a very male name for a duchess.
Maybe it's her surname.
Maybe it is. I love the comment about the waistcoat too, because you could sense the dress. Again, costume. That wonderful moment of sensing the costume in a play. You got that great description, even though it's half finished. You know where you are. She's in a state of undress, or partial undress, it seems at that point. No, really interesting.
She's talking about the order. Is my new thing ready yet? It's like, how forward is my petticoat or waistcoat? I don't see you doing any work on it. It's like, and nobody seems to be working on my new thing. Could you do some work, please, in the household? So there's interesting things there. Eric.
I just like the idea that sort of Regera has clearly heard this before, so she's kind of fussing around doing everything, but also the Duchess is like, "Do I have to do everything myself? Everything?" And then obviously she's just divvying out orders, and Regera's going, "What quantity do you want? Come on, just tell me and I'll do it. I have better things to be getting on with."
And it's a play. Or what we've got of it is full of these little moments of just physical business. You know, it's like they enter, but then the Duchess is going to pace around for a bit. She walked about and at last spake thus. So it's almost like she's going, "Is what is it ready yet? Is it ready yet?" And then we get the same again when we've got the letter reading. We have a lengthy moment where someone gets to emote. And before they speak, and that comes out. I mean, it reads a bit like melodrama, and we possibly overdid it. But
I don't know. I mean, the silence before she reacts to the letter at least allows for a bit of a transition between, God help us, recipes for jam and death.
Yeah. But I like that, jam or death. You know, I like that. I think there is the risk of bathos here. There is the risk of that. But yeah, I like those details. Eric.
I just like the fact that all of them seem to have a character. Like the Duchess has clearly something in mind, and it's Regera's thing to sort of execute whatever the Duchess has in mind. But then she sort of hones in on Pantifelus, who's like sort of, "I get nothing come out of your hands but playbooks and toys." And then Pantifelus gives her basically what she wants to hear. And then the Duchess goes, "Do not give me fair words only, but let me see good deeds withal." It's like it's almost like a sort of backhanded.
I've heard your excuses before.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know, it's interesting, like, as a characterization, just like, because you can tell these three women apart just by reading it.
Yeah, but no, let everything being hung with black. We're taking this as definitely true. Bad stuff going on. They lead her in. And again, this is where I say, is this the next scene? Discuss, because the action potentially sort of semi-flows one scene into another, because we have more. So, after they lead her in, then enters a young marquis named Lusidimus, being son to the Duchess, sitting him down in a dolorous manner, with his arms across, speaking thus.
"Oh, unhappy Lusidimus, since you hast not lived so long as to govern thyself, hast lived so long as to see thy father's death, yet like to be so much the more unhappy as to see thy mother's death. Also, poor orphan, what will become of me? For when I shall come but in her sight, I shall add tears unto tears, grief unto grief, and so make a threefold sorry betwixt us. She for me, I for her, and both of us for my father. Yet a companion's grief is some ease to the mind. I will go in and a visit make."
Over moans to one another. So yeah, it might be that they're both bellowing in grief, and that they flow into, because the next scene, and we'll run this straight on, potentially, he being gone a little space, enter the Duchess, led by him and Lord. So basically, he goes into the moaning of her off stage and brings her on. That seems to be the logic of this bit. Led by him and a lord, she sitting down begun thus.
"My dear son, and you, my lord, since this hard fortune hath turned her wheel so strongly round on the left harm on the least harm against us."
This bit was, as you can tell by the formatting, is very unclear as to what the text is doing, so I apologise for throwing that at you. We'll discuss later.
"We must, like savage creatures, range through the thorny caves of this endless world. With me 'tis counted so, since my dear lord's departure. till at last, like those, we may end our wearisome journey. This busy world gives no time to grief. Therefore, we must possess our wits and memory to contrive in some manner to bring this invention to pass that I will declare unto you. Draw near, my son, and you, my lord, arise, and I will tell you what it is.
And they whisper, the lady, having showed her mind, the Lord speaks, I am ready in this, or in a greater matter, to do your grace service.
I think this will require time to think on some points that with your grace's favor I will show unto you.
I think it would be good that we went into the council room to pass this thing to bring.
They lead her in, and that's effectively the end of that unit of action. All of those scenes effectively sort of flow into each other, but can be broken up variously. So the son, he's unhappy, she's unhappy, but she's got some cunning plan that she whispers, so we don't know what it is, but there's a cunning plan. Any thoughts on this cunning plan? Any thoughts on what's going on here? In this thorny caves of this endless world?
Well, she clearly has something in mind that's going to start the next bit of plot. As in, we should all disguise ourselves and go see the king. Or, I mean, presumably her husband died, and so, did he die in battle? Did he?
We haven't really been
Well,
told.
they said-
We just had a letter saying he's dead.
No, they said a letter of one of your servants from my lord's camp. So he's in camp somewhere, which could mean he's on campaign. But on the other hand, so maybe we're all going to disguise ourselves and go be soldiers for a while, and Lusidimus is going to somehow become a hero, and
that might be over inferring from the text at this stage, but definitely there is a plot.
There's a plot, and I think the Lord probably needs a name.
Barry.
There must. Anyway, so
Dwayne.
yeah,
Dwayne.
Whatever she whispers to them is whatever sets off the next bit of plot.
But it's all very brief. It's all sort of a sketch again, isn't it? It's sort of which again, I mean, I don't know as of yet. This is our first introduction to Rachel Fane. How expansive her dramaturgy is. For all we know, this is actually all she wanted to set down and was going to keep relatively short scenes. Again, I don't know how extensive the performances that she's writing for are actually expected to be. This is all for private family discourse to a degree, how large or how small these plays are expected to be is a question that at this stage I don't know any answers to. But it feels quite small and domestic, and it's the kind of thing that you might get your family to do at the moment, or extended family to be involved in. So there's that little element. Okay. We have one little scenette left. Let us see where this goes. Enter an empress, with one bearing up her train, attended by two lords, Tertigimus and Philantus. She sits down in her chair of state.
My lords, Tertigimus and Philantus, I pray give me your counsel in this thing. My daughter Vuria is lately fallen sick, love sick. And with whom, think you, even with the Prince of Lecratus?
He is in Arcadia.
Is he? Do you know him?
And then we have the final note, I lost the rest.
I'm sorry, I should have read, but I did not. But you did very good. I don't know. I wonder if this was someone trying to write it down in shorthand while the play was going on, and then they spilt their ink or their quill broke or something.
I don't think that's what's going on here. I'm assuming from the fact that we have other fragments and other pieces by Rachel Fane that these are notes kept within the family for the purposes of performance, or to record the performance in some fashion. I don't really believe in the whole writing out a play as you're listening to it kind of thing. I've never really bought that as a concept. But anyway, the Empress and Lord. This feels like this is a plot. Here's a plot. Daughter's fallen lovesick with the Prince of Lacratus. Ooh. He is in Arcadia, apparently.
Ooh.
Do you know him? Have you met him before? Also, one lord has met him before. Ooh, yeah. Do you know him? No,
It was
never
one of
heard
those
of him.
tantalizing scenes, wasn't it? It was lovely. It was just so like, and I loved, and it was, it was almost like an EastEnders moment at the end with is he? Do you know him? Because if it wasn't for the fact we lost the rest, it did feel like a sort of EastEnders plot twist.
Yeah, I mean, and sadly that is all we have. So we don't really have a proper sense of what this play is doing. It's interestingly domestic, and then we have this scene which is massive. I say massive. It's an empress with two servants, but she's got a train, and we're obviously there's a chair of state, so that it feels like that's a much wider political position than the first scene where
we had a duchess with two servants, and the empress
but also with jam. The empress does not mention jam making at any point.
In the first 6 lines of the scene, no,
well,
but
no.
maybe the Duchess will send her a nice jar of applesauce. But so the Empress has a train bearer and attended by 2 lords. So yeah, she's got 3 attendants.
But in terms of, regardless of the scale of the actual staging, there is a sense of this being a bigger thing, that there is a wider world. Whereas with the Duchess, a hint of a camp, therefore a campaign, therefore maybe there's a war going on. Are they on the same side as the Empress? How are they intersecting with the Empress? These things are questions of which there are necessary at the moment no answers. Eric,
I'm just wondering how old Lusidimus is, because Lusidimus is kind of like, since you hast not lived so long to govern thyself. But hey, you lived that long to sort of see your dad die, which is an interesting. So he's under adult age.
Yeah. So govern yourself. Is that what 14 above? Are you start to be considered an adult in the early modern period? It's relatively young, I think, isn't it?
I don't know when it was, but 14 strikes me as a little young. Maybe it would have been more like 15, 16, but
But you could be as young as that. I think that's when you can start taking on responsibility. It starts younger in great families, as I recall, potentially, when the level of control of guardians would be less. But you're right. I could be. That's just what the number I had in my head for some reason.
It's just that I assumed that the plot was going to be basically like the Duchess getting Lusidimus to marry someone else so that they can be sort of safe in the future. But I don't know, maybe that's just me.
Yeah, it's unclear what the plan is, because she doesn't tell us. She whispers it in the Lord, and only that Lord knows what the plan is, and sadly, he hasn't told us at this stage.
Well, no, she whispers it to both of them, right?
Yeah.
They both the Lord and Lusidimus know.
But they all know, but they haven't told us, which is very rude, I feel. That's quite annoying.
I mean, Vuria, the Prince of Lacratus, it's sort of, even though the mother is a duchess, clearly, and the Prince of Lacratus has to be Lusidimus, right? Vuria has to be in love with Lusidimus. That has to be like how it starts.
Well, it might not be. It might be a tangential that she will then fall in love with Lusidimus as an alternative partner. That the love sickness might be something for someone inappropriate, and that
as
the
a cure.
And and it will all turn itself around. We don't know for certain. I don't know. I don't know where any of these people are. But anyway, yeah, it gives us a lot of possibilities where to take this play. It could really go anywhere. In a way, actually, it's a very open universe that we've encountered here. I'd say it has a certain simplicity to it. It's not a dense text, even as it's written here. There are some formatting questions as to how much is in verse and how much is in prose. I think it's basically mostly in prose, but there are ambiguities as to that. Yeah, any final thoughts from the room on this our first visit to Lady Rachel Fane?
I like her. I wish she'd keep writing.
Well, we do have a few more. We do have a few more pieces, some of which are not inherently fragmentary. There might be working copies, but do actually have an ending. So there is more. There is more. There are at least 2 more sessions we'll be doing on Rachel Fane. We are running out of female playwrights at the period, but we will be looking at her. Greg, did you wave? No. Okay. Any additional final thoughts before I close this session? No. Right. Well, Liza, were you waving?
Just that this is a very nice piece, and I wish that we had more of it, even if it turned out kind of chaotic and weird. Which is the vibe that we get. I would like to read more.
Yeah. On that note, we will, I'm sure, do more on this. We almost certainly will record this as a fragments episode for the podcast. That's inevitable, and possibly even relatively soon as to the at the point of recording this. In fact, by the time this comes out, it's entirely possible I've already recorded it and released it. These things have happened. Yeah, we will find out more about what we might do with this Duchess. All that remains, thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Oranges and lemons are coming in now.